Welcome to Kids Entertainer Podcast. And today I have with me Richard Welsh, or is it Richard Corcoran?
Well, I'm actually the same person. It all depends, really. Richard Corcoran is me, but I'm actually Welsh. So I started the entertainment business quite a few years ago, about 30 years ago, as a DJ. Obviously, because I'm a kids entertainer DJ now. But then when I was doing the clubs, I was called Taffy, which is a bit cliched. So I thought I'll change to Richard Welsh. And it's actually stuck, so everybody knows me as Richard Welsh, so that's not a problem with that. And I'm quite happy with that, but I am actually Richard Corcoran. A bit confusing, but it keeps a tax man happy anyway.
Fantastic. Thank you for clearing that up, Richard. It sort of came across when I was looking on Facebook and on your website. I got the two names and I thought, is this the same guy? I actually pulled your pictures up from the two and I was comparing them. I was like, no, it's definitely the same person. I just wanted to...
There's only one of me. I'll tell you that now. Yeah, there's only one of me. There's no other person. There's only one of me. It might be a little bit cracked like me, but it's only one of me.
Fantastic. Now, Richard, when I was doing a little bit of back-end research to sort of get a grasp of who Richard Welsh is, I came across that you were an ex-comedy performer. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I've done a lot of stuff, really. I started out as a DJ back in the 70s and early 80s. And then DJs were quite chatty. DJs now, headphones mixing, we were more entertainers. And I used to make a lot of people laugh, and people say to me, "Oh, you're quite funny. You should be doing a bit of comedy." So in the 80s and 90s, I put a comedy actor. I was called what they call a speciality act, visual. So I didn't actually talk, and I ended up doing nightclubs. It was like a spoof on movies and adverts, and I ended up doing all the nightclubs, and then got into the comedy scene. Did 2 shows at Edinburgh. I did an hour show there, which I really loved. I really enjoyed. It's just something a little bit different because it was visual. It appealed to all different audiences, really, which I love. But I did that for about 10 years.
Wow, that's quite impressive. I can't possibly think of how to entertain for an hour without speaking.
Well, the whole thing is, with a visual thing, it's spoofs on movies, adverts, and then maybe what was in the news at that time. And I was very lucky. I was able to travel to Finland, Germany, Spain, France, working, because there's no language. But the visuals, if you can make someone laugh, like someone like Rowan Atkinson, with his visual character, Mr. Bean, that sort of comedy travels.
Oh, fantastic. And I can only imagine that is hugely helpful, that kind of background in what it is that you do now.
I guess it is, because I think you can think... You've learned what makes people laugh. The most difficult thing when you're a comedian, sometimes you get the laugh and sometimes you don't, but you have to work at it, and then you'll find a formula that you'll know that'll get a laugh. I'll give you an example. A couple of years I got married, and my wife, with the first dance, she wanted something a little different, so we did a little bit of my visual comedy, and she said, "Will it get a laugh?" I said, "I know now. I've been doing it long enough." And so instead of doing the first dance, we have a first dance together, we did a little spoof where we did our first song, which is a bit of Luther Vandross, and then there's a sound of a phone ringing, Superman music, and underneath my outfit, my wedding outfit, was a Superman costume, and we did like a 10-minute comedy spoof, and it just ripped the place apart. It made people laugh. People have never forgotten that.
I can well imagine. I so wish I could see that. I think that must have been absolutely amazing. How memorable, not only for your guests, but for you as well. And again, like I say, that ability to, with visual comedy, entertain children, I think that is an incredibly useful skill to have.
It's making that connection, because when you're with children, the whole thing is making a bit of fool of yourself, and thinking on your feet. And it can be a physical. I love physical comedy. I love going to London, watching the street performers. I think that's a really big talent. And if you can make that connection to making them laugh, because when the children come to a party, they're always a little bit nervous, never met you, and if you can make them laugh in the first 30 seconds a minute, because when you perform in a comedy club, you have to make you have to make that connection with the audience in the first 30 seconds, a minute, and then you're up and running. If you don't, then you've got uphill battle. So the whole thing is, and I use those skills doing children's parties. If you make the children laugh in the sort of minute and a half, then they're with you all the way through then.
I can certainly associate and identify with that. You've got to be able to make them feel really comfortable very quickly so that they can trust you and essentially enjoy the party. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there. That connection with the audience is vital for your success and obviously for the success of the party. So going from a background as a comedy performer to now children's entertainer, DJ, tell us a little bit more about how that transformation took place.
Well, initially I was working as a DJ. Then you get a lot of friends who are always booking you, and then someone said, "Oh, can you help out to doing a children's party for their daughter?" Which I've never even thought of. So I sort of sat together, put some ideas, some typical games, for what sort of music was, and it was a bit nervous, but we had a really good party, and I love the energy of children. They sort of, if I'm being honest, they keep me really young. But I've learned from my comedy skills, if you are performing for adults, if they're not happy with you doing a show, they'll just put up with it. With children, if you don't make that connection, they'll instantly switch off and go and walk away and go to their parents or just won't pay attention. So the whole thing is you can make that connection with the children, and I just find it's quite rewarding, really, for children, because you get to do lots of parties, you get to see them do their friends, and they regard you as a friend, and it's just lovely.
Oh, yeah. And again, I'm sure that certainly I and our listeners will be able to identify with us on that one, being able to be recognized and appreciated for what you do, because kids are brutally honest. Like you say, if you can't engage them, they'll just simply switch off and walk off. And if you manage to keep them there for the whole duration of the time that you are there with them, you are doing something right. I think they probably our best critics as our audiences of children. They tell it or show it as it is.
I would say that people have this misconception. They think, if you just do a couple of tricks or you just play a bit of music, they'll dance. No, they won't. You have to make that connection. And there's an art to that. There's an art to the warm-up, the sitting down, making that connection with the children. I'm watching all the children when they come in and see what they like for their parents when the parents say goodbye to them. And then you know what sort of children you've got then. And people have no realization that is one of the most important things to do, as you've just said, is making that connection with the children.
Very, very much so. Now, moving on to sort of more the DJ part of what it is that you do, Richard, I've got a burning question, and I'm sure I'm asking this on the behalf of a lot of people, children's entertainers that use music in their performances, in what they do, whether it be background music or whether it's part of maybe a dance routine or dance routines or maybe musical games that they play. Is how do you choose which songs to play? Well,
I think as a children's entertainer, you have to be connected. You have to know what the children are into, from the pop charts, from the ever CDs that come out with all the top charts. During the food break, I'm always chatting. When they're having their food break, I always go around to all the children and chat to them all, and they ask, what's your favourite movie, what's your favourite songs, and you get to know. It's like, obviously, the phenomenon of Frozen has been a big thing for the entertainment market for children. And the song Let It Go kept coming out for quite a while. I didn't even know what this movie was. So then you do a bit of research and you'll find your songs.
Yep. That is such a vital piece of information, is ask your audience. They're going to tell you. And I think, I certainly I have done that in the past, and I think you're spurring me on to do the same again, Richard, to go around and do your market research. Ask the kids, what do you like? What songs do you like? What movies do you like? And like you say, Frozen. I'm sure every entertainer, when you say the word Frozen, they almost groan at this point in time. But hey, it works. It works. The kids love it. They know it. You know it's a surefire success.
Well, it's an age thing, isn't it? There was something in our age. There was Grease and all that sort of stuff. This is what the children are into. You have to know what movies they're into. Obviously, if you look at my website, I do specialise in theme parties, which is a big thing for me. But I do my market research. I need to know all the characters. I'll sit down and watch the movie. Years ago, there was High School Musical. I had to sit down and watch all the movies, knew all the characters, because the children, as you said, they're your strongest critic. They all know if you don't know. It's not just playing the music. You have to know the characters, and you can use those characters or any part of the movie in the theme, which makes it personal then.
Oh, that is just the best excuse ever to sit and watch kids' movies all the time. I'm doing research.
We love Disney or any other movie, children's movie.
I think they make us children's entertainers an endless source of material, crazes, songs, dances, jokes, and everything that comes with it from television programs. And again, like you say, do the research, get into what the kids are into, and just go with it.
You always have to be looking what the next thing, as you said before, looking for the next thing. I'm always looking what the children are going to be in the future and get ready to plan. It's like, fortunately going back to Frozen, which obviously some entertainers go, oh no, Frozen, but it's what the children are into. I knew the thing about it coming, that it was building up. So I started getting props. I couldn't get some of the stuff I needed from the UK, so I went to the States and got my props.
Wow.
And cutouts and stuff that I could only get there. But when the children come in and see the setup, it's magical, and that's what the party's about. It's making it magical for them.
Exactly, and I guess that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, is to please your audience, and you please them by giving them that what they are familiar with, that what they want, despite the fact that you have done how many Frozen parties for them. It is their special day, and that's the theme that they want, or any other particular theme that they might be into. Then another question I have for you, Richard, is regarding music. I mean, music is ever changing. There's always new hits coming out. The kids are very in tune because they hear it on television, they hear it in adverts. YouTube is a big thing where a lot of music comes out and be used as well. How do you use that? Because I'm sure that's quite a big part of what you do, being a kids DJ. Where do you get the latest tunes?
The most important thing for me is I use a company here in the UK. They're called CD Pool, which are very good. They're radio edits. So there's unfortunately in the market these days, even for children, they don't know there's swearing or what the song content is. But obviously, I'm very important that I will get a radio edit so there's no swearing in it, because that's the way that some of the music is. But it comes in to me clean, which I haven't got to worry about. But for every song, if you look at the charts, you can see what the most popular songs the children are going to be asking for. So if I think a song's going to be a little bit dodgy, I will look up the lyrics for it. And if the lyrical content I'm not happy with, even though it's clean, I won't play it. I don't care. I've had some schools, and they trust me. I do a lot of schools. They trust me that I'm not going to upset anybody, because you've got to have one child say to his parents, oh, that DJ, that Richard, he paid that song, and if that parent complains, that's your career, that's your reputation, and I don't want to do that. And to me, I want to keep children being children as long as possible, and to me that's quite important.
I think that is such an important thing, because we hear the tunes all the time, and I know that I've listened to music, I like the beat, I like the sort of feel of it, and then only after I've listened to it a good number of times do I start sort of realizing what the meaning behind the song is. Even like you say, even if it's a clean song, if they're not actually using any sort of explicit words or anything like that. And I think that's something really important for us as children's entertainers to take on board. You've got that responsibility.
I'll give you an example, Gangnam Style, which is obviously another phenomenal song, but obviously it's got the word sexy lady.
Yep.
So I now, just not to offend anybody, if I'm doing a children's party, especially for little ones, I either turn the music down for that bit and get the children to do an action, or when that bit's being played, I will change the lyrics of that. I will shout out turkey and gravy or happy birthday to the birthday star over those bits. And then sometimes the children will copy you as well.
Yeah.
It just takes that element away. We know it's okay, but you just don't want to upset one person or one child, really.
Of course, that it only takes one, doesn't it? I love the idea of taking the songs and with the words in where you can sort of replace it for a funny, crazy word or something, because we know kids absolutely love the ridiculous. And that's quite a creative way of using those popular songs, but in a way that you're not going to offend anyone. That's
also then you're making the children laugh.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about. And then if they start copying you, you will find that if they're at another party, they will sing those words as well, so it carries.
Fantastic. I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, Richard, I'm going to sort of take a stab in the dark here, and I'm going to guess that when you go to a party, you don't just purely play music. Am I right?
One of my most thing about my parties is my games.
Wow.
Though people class you as a kid's DJ, games is one of my most important things, because if you just play music, the children won't just dance. You need to interact with the children. So I like, the big thing I like doing original games. I like updating old-fashioned games, giving them modern slants, and make it as original as possible, because some children will go to a party, oh, you can do this game, you can do that game. I said, well, no, not really, but I'll do something similar to it. Or they see you setting up some props for a game, and then they love it so much that when they go to a party, another party, they will say, oh, you're going to play that game, Richard, so you know that they've enjoyed it.
Fantastic. I love it. And I must urge you guys, our listeners out there, that if you've not read Richard's blog post on Kids Entertainer Hub, where he shares some of these games, really hop on over there. It's www.kidsentertainerhub.com. And if you click on DJs and discos, I think is the sort of block on the front page, it takes you through to Richard's page, where he's posted about what he does at parties. It's not just about the music, I think is the title you gave it. And then you share some of these games, Richard, and I was super excited when I read these.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed that.
Yeah, they are so fresh, and it's got such an interesting twist on it, with the whole non-elimination side of things, but how to also modernize old games where you keep it similar so the children have the concept of it, but you put a spin on it. And that was really a fantastic, refreshing idea for me. So hop on over and go and have a read for yourself. And thank you very much for sharing that so graciously.
I think my thing on the non-elimination games is really, if a child has to sit out of a game, then they're very open to distraction, to go off and do something else, and then someone else will follow them, and you're going to lose them. If you control them and you have them all together having so much fun, then you've always got their attention. Then, but try and be original, because I'm known in my area because I belong to DJ meetings as well as entertainer meetings, and people always ask me for games and said, "Oh, we're going to play this game." I said, "Why are you doing that?" The children love that because they only like it because they're used to it. But if you can try something a little bit different and make it your own. Just use your head, really. Just think about it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and that's maybe something certainly for me to look out is instead of just sticking with the same games because kids love it. Yes, of course they love it because they know it and they've done it hundreds of times before. But be that little bit brave. As long as you can sort of explain clearly what is expected from them, there's no reason why they shouldn't enjoy it. And I mean, trial and error is going to teach you on this, but stick your head out a little bit and make a little bit of a challenge for yourself to see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, I think, for example, on the Kids Entertainers Hub, I've got examples of musical statues or Pass the Parcel, but I put my slant on it and made it a little bit different, and like something like musical statues. I will do that on a theme party, but I will use the theme of the movie I'm doing as part of musical statues. It makes it a little bit different. They think they're getting the same thing, but it's a little bit different, but they have a simple understanding of it, really.
Yep. I really like the idea there. I will very briefly, sort of my understanding of it was where when the music stops, when the supposed or traditionally the children would freeze, you get them to do a comedy action that's related to the theme. Am I right?
Yeah, for example, a very simple example, I do a lot of superhero movies, Marvel movies, so when the music stops, choose a superhero or a superhero action. So it's like when the music stops, be Superman. So when the music stops, you're going to be you can be flying. Instead of stopping, you can be flying. So that you got an action then, or be if you're going to be Hulk, be sort of that sort of stuff. And the same thing could be for Frozen when the music stops. Be Olaf, you can be a snowman, be a big snowman. When the sun comes out, you melt. All those sort of things, and it's an action, but it's still musical statues, but just updated it really.
Fantastic. I really, really like that. And it's so exciting to see those things. And I know that was just a very small example of the things that you do in your parties. And again, I know certainly from my work and everyone else that uses games and what they do, it evolves. Things evolve. You get bits and pieces that come out from a party, and you sort of keep the best of the best and the most successful bits and pieces that works.
I think you're right. As editors, we're evolving all the time. I sort of, my wife says to me, I remember seeing that show you did 6 years ago, and it was so funny. I loved the way you did with the children. And I said, my show's completely different now because you're evolving all the time. And you might even say a line that gets a laugh. You think, oh, I'll keep that in. Remember that. It's just off the cuff. Or an action or something or a game. You've added something, another element to it. You'll keep that. But you're evolving all the time. Your show will never stay the same.
Fantastic. And I think, again, for our listeners, for our kids entertainer hubsters out there listening to this podcast, that's again a great piece of learning, continuously working and changing and experimenting with the things that you come across, with the bits and pieces that you're learning from this podcast and all the others that's gone before, is change and try and see what works best for you, especially maybe if you're trying out or starting out, you've not been in the industry for long. Don't get stuck down with one thing, take the different influences, put your own stamp on it, make it your own, but never stop growing and learning, because I think what you stand the chance of getting bored with it, and that would probably be the worst thing possible, because one thing that certainly comes from your whole approach, Richard, is that 100% enjoyment with the children.
Yeah, you're right. You have to enjoy it. As we've discussed before, I've done comedy, I've done tours, theatre tours, that sort of thing, but I would say, I think I put that on Kids Entertainers before, the satisfaction of doing a children's party, there's nothing beats it. You've connected the children, you've made them laugh. At the end of a party, they come up and say goodbye or high-five you or that sort of thing. It's just fantastic. I come home absolutely elated. It's like you can't relax because you've given a child, you've made a memory for a child. You've given them a great time, and nothing beats that.
Oh, I can so agree with that. That, memory that you've created, I think that's such an important thing. They are at such a impressionable age, the children we have the privilege to work with and touch, to touch in their sort of memories as part of their growing up. As children's entertainers, we get to be part of those very, very special years. And I think that is such an important element, that enjoyment. You have to enjoy what you do, because if you don't, it's going to show. It's going to show.
Well, children will notice that. If there's anything false, they will know straight away, and they can easily switch off. And the whole thing is, like you were saying a little bit earlier, it's keeping it fresh, because otherwise the parents will say, "Oh, they did that game before. They did all that before." Every time we've seen them, if you're very lucky and you do your job well, you'll end up working around the class. You'll do maybe half a dozen parties for some people in the class. If you do exactly the same thing all the time, they'll say, "We won't book them again because they did the same thing last time."
Very much so. I've just actually had a weekend I did 5 birthday parties, and 4 of them were groups that I have all performed to before. So it was one.
Right. You can't beat that.
Exactly, it's great. It means offline marketing is working, yay! But it did present with an interesting challenge, I guess, because my show has got set routines in it, and there's a little bit of variety in that. So it really kept me on my toes, because kids are great for repetition. I mean, they learn through doing the same activity or the same dance or
Very
something
true, very true.
again and again. But something very interesting that I learned recently from doing some research actually on an article I wrote for Kids Entertainer Hub was that when a child learns through repetition, every time they repeat something, they don't learn the same thing. They learn a different aspect of that particular game or song or whatever it may be. So that's all good and well. But if you've had groups that's again and again and again and again, they get to a point where they've learned everything there is to learn about it. So it kept me on my toes with thinking a little bit out of the box and how to put a different spin on things and how to switch things up to keep it familiar to the group, because that's what they love. They love the familiarity, but yet
Absolutely.
fresh and interesting that still kept them all engaged. So it's that fine balance, I guess.
I've introduced a new thing. I do a lot of schools where I'm doing Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. Now, Key Stage 2, where you've got quite a bit of older children, where they've seen you every year for, say, 5, 6 years, 7 years. They've grown up with you, and you can't be doing the same thing every time you go there. So for Key Stage 2, I've introduced like a game show, and I make a note to the games I do between boys and girls, because an hour and a half for Key Stage 2, which is about 150 children, could be quite daunting. So I try and break up with a few games, team games, fun games, boys against girls with sound bites. The children love that, but I make a note on what I'm doing for each school I do. So I know I won't go do that. I won't do that one again because I did that last time. So it adds a little bit of variety.
Wow, that's quite a checking system you must have in place to be able to do that. Well, it's actually caring and thinking about before you, not just go and then just turn up and do the party. It's thinking, right, I've done that. I'm very lucky. I'm always looking for games, looking for ideas, and then I'll put the package together. So then I'll make a list. I'll take that game, and that game. I'll take a lot. I always take more than I need. I think you should always have more than you need. You never know. Oh yes, yeah, that has come in handy a few times as well.
Yeah.
Oh, Richard, it's been absolutely fantastic chatting to you. I certainly have got a huge amount out of the conversation, out of the bits and pieces that you have got out there and freely sharing Kids Entertainer Hub. And with the podcast, and I really appreciate your time. I'm sure our audience will get a huge amount out of this interview as well. I will pop a link to your website on the show notes, as well as to the article you've done for Kids Entertainer Hub that mentions those a couple of games that we spoke about, and then the link that you spoke about a radio pool where you get your songs or your new releases from. So thank you very, very much for your time.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. If anybody wants to leave a message on Kids Entertainer Hub, any questions, just please do that. I'm always there to open. We're there to help each other out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Richard.
It's been my pleasure.